Kia ora, good evening, and welcome to the 89th episode of the Huddy Hui. Well, we're coming into the Jubilee Cup round, but there's something more important than Jubilee Cup this Friday. It is a unique rugby tournament played on one of the most very famous video game consoles of all time, PlayStation 1, and the game, of course, is Jonah Lomu Rugby. And joining us tonight is one of the great minds who came up with this idea for a tournament, Sean Kelly. Sean, many thanks for coming on the Huddy Hui. How did this idea of the Jonah Lomu Rugby tournament come around?
Kia ora, Brad. It was basically, the idea came from, we've got a pretty averagely successful podcast. Myself, Simon, Sam Blanford and Pat Sellers. And Simon actually decided we should do a Jonah's episode. He actually trialled a Jonah's podcast episode about 10 years ago when podcasting was a relatively new concept. And we put something together. This was probably over a year ago, and by far our most successful episode. And at the time, we discussed the tournament, and it just didn't quite come together. There's a lot of moving parts, or I should say working parts required. And then, just a few months ago, we thought, talking to a few people, we know enough people out there with PlayStations and copies of the game. Let's give this a crack. And here we are.
And here we are indeed. Now let's talk about your podcast with Sam and Simon Blanford and Pat Sellers. Wish it was the 90s. It's been some good cracking ones. I'll talk to you later on about some of the predictions from last week's episode. But how did this idea of the podcast come around? You mentioned about the Lomu episode, but tell us about the podcast and what do you discuss? Is it all about that era of the 90s when we were growing up as kids?
Pretty much. It evolved from, there were sort of two sides of the same idea. Me and Pat had discussed making a podcast. Basically, we're a couple of big nerds, so just about nerd things. And we realised we didn't have the time to, review movies or whatever when they came out. And there's also, thousands of those already. And so we hypothesised doing a watch through of the X-Men animated series cartoon from the 90s. And sort of at the same time, I got a message out of the blue from Sam saying, hey, I've been talking to Simon and we reckon the three of us could do a podcast playthrough of Final Fantasy VII. So we kicked off with that stuff, and that was quite arduous, trying to play a PlayStation game as a grown man or watch 70-odd episodes of the cartoon. And so we sort of thought then we'll just cover whatever we want from the 90s and, put stuff out there every now and then. And so, we do movies, we do award ceremonies. We've got a great new segment called Cringe Factor, which recently did a cracking episode on Telly Bingo. But yeah, it's basically anything. And we give it a crack, have a really loose sort of formula that we run with. And, I think I've worked out probably the worse the content, the better content we provide.
Exactly. It's a fantastic episode. Let's talk about last week's episode. We actually talked about the tournament itself, the preview to the tournament. There were some interesting predictions. Who's going to possibly be the favourites to take it out? Who's going to be, what is Simon Blanford called, what's he called it again? The horse's ass. The wooden spoon.
The horse's ass.
Yes.
Yeah, the wooden spoon. Look, interestingly enough, after last week's episode, George Bevan has started throwing an array of excuses about why he might not make it. And I was talking to Toddy earlier today, and he was really enjoying it and said he had to turn it off after the boys started talking him up. He didn't like the pressure. So it's an interesting thing because, we everyone's played this game that wants to talk about it. And there's this level of knowledge of like, who was the best person that you played against when you were at school. But if you've never played against someone else, how do you know? I remember I thought me and, friends, the guys we went to school with were just the greatest Lomu's players I'd ever played with. And I went on a cricket tournament and challenged BJ Crook, and, he put like 40 points on me.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
So you never know. And there's a couple of unknown factors as well. Cam Fenton, who grew up in Palmy, he talks a big game, and there's just no knowing what that Manawatu Jonah Lomu rugby system can provide.
And Sam Blanford, the younger brother of Simon, suggested that the person that's got to come last is me. So, one I'll say,
look, he threw that out. I think you'll be fine. There's someone in the chat, I don't want to name them, but I think they've played about 20 practice games and haven't won one yet.
Oh, wow. Jeez. Well, it's anything going on my form. I've still got a lot of practice to do. Jeez. So.
Yeah. There's a few interesting tidbits of controversy, I would say. Probably two rules in particular that people have differing views on. One's the view that you use. There's a lot of north-souths out there, but by virtue of, I guess, going with neutrality, we've gone with the default view. And then probably the other one that I didn't expect to be controversial at all. I thought this was a generally accepted way to play Lomus, is the square circle, enter, exit, ruck, fast motion.
Yeah.
So some people are, I guess, traditionalists. But in saying that, when we had we were setting up down at the Tony Cricket Club tonight. We were hosting the tournament and had a little practice to make sure the controllers were working, the games were working and stuff like that. And, I was just getting pinged offside all the time because I couldn't get my timing right. So it's a double-edged sword if you're rusty.
Oh, exactly right. Now let's talk about some of the rules. You mentioned the square button there. What are some of the other rules? The structure of the tournament.
Yes.
Yeah, so what's happening?
So we've got 20 teams. So we're going in 4 pools. We're going to go 7-minute games. We discovered tonight that 5 minutes just isn't enough. So 7-minute games. It's your classic, I guess, slightly more old school Super Rugby point system with bonus points for 4 tries and within 7. And then we'll have, after the round robin or the pool play, we'll have quarterfinals for the major section. We're going to gauge interest on a plate section because some people might be a little bit disinterested after not making into the major section. But we also have the wooden spoon horse's ass section, which is the bottom team from each pool playing in a losers stays on. And actually, this is something that we've decided. We think that professional sport doesn't do enough to identify who the worst team in a tournament is.
Yeah, totally agree.
And, if you're in the pool of death, you might have the worst points differential, but that doesn't mean you're the worst team. You only know you're the worst team if you lose to the second worst team.
Oh, exactly right. Yes. Now, I believe there's a particular one team that may... Is there one team that's not allowed to be used or picked?
Yeah, we've banned New Zealand. It's interesting as well. Obviously, the novelty teams are out as well. Your Rage All Stars, and you wouldn't want to be the Code Masters. But what I found really interesting is so we got a message from a Instagram page called JL Rugby NZ. And this guy I was talking to, he does a mod for the game with PlayStation controllers, but obviously on a PC with like modern teams, and his classic matches are things like there's an 85 Ranfurly Shield game, there's the Hurricanes Highlanders Super Rugby final, there's the Japan South Africa World Cup match. So it's quite a cool setup he's got there. And he listened to the preview and he just sent me this thing. So obviously when he's doing what he does to mod the game, he collected all the players' stats, combined them to work out which are the best teams. And I was quite surprised to see that the All Blacks are the best team, but your South Africas and your Australias, I think Australia's second, and it's not a lot of difference, which I was quite surprised about. But there's probably other things that aren't necessarily factored into those statistics. Quite a lot of the All Blacks forward pack can fend. Their X-factor players are quite easily identifiable, and it just seems like an unfair advantage if you're New Zealand.
Oh, exactly right. And who are your particular odds to take out in your own opinion, to take out the tournament?
So we had a late entry
oh, wow.
from Scott Bonner, who, I've known a long time through the Petone cricket system. He's a big Petone rugby guy as well. And by all accounts, talking to a few people, he was one of those guys that played this game his whole life. And if there's one thing I know about Bobo, it's he's got that competitive edge. And then there's another part of me that kind of just hopes he wins, because if he doesn't, I don't want to see the fallout.
Yeah. No, you don't. Exactly right. Yeah. So tell us about some of the other characters that are taking part in the tournament on Friday.
Yeah, so it's a interesting group. There's a few worlds colliding here. We've sort of got the Blandfords, friends from school, a few guys that went to school with you and I, a few sort of cricket connections as well. We've got international flavour with Rian Swanepoel, a South African Lomu's player. We've got from our days when we were at Silverstream, we've got Todd McSweeney, Patrick Howden, Willie Jury, who dark horse, the man knows technology.
Yeah.
And he may actually be called upon to provide coverage of the Warriors.
Important for where they're going.
Yeah, exactly. One from the other, I guess, from the Blandford side of things, but someone that I know quite well from my school days, even though he's a high boy, is Cameron Pollock. Not only do I suspect he would be a really good Lomu's player, but I don't think I've met someone who has more appreciation and love for the 90s.
Oh, exactly right.
So he's bringing both his probably quite a lot of skill, but also some real specific content passion here.
Now, I've just seen a picture come through on our chat. Sam Blandford, right at the bar, TV above, John Lomu Rugby, ready to go. So that's one of the setups already.
Yeah, it was. We've worked out a good setup down there. I was a little bit late to get setting up, and obviously left a little bit early for a much more important engagement here. But they've got 4 different screens ready to go with a couch for the players and then leaners behind for the crowd. We expect a good, almost more than support. I'm looking forward to finding out who the tournament villains are. And I don't think anyone will be complaining like last week if there's a bit of booing and heckling going on. I think it's probably good for the game in this instance.
Exactly. Now, I'll tell you, Pat Howden, I saw on Monday, and he reckons that you shouldn't be practicing going into this tournament. You should go in there.
I know, he said that. He said going blind.
Yeah, going blind.
All you do if you do that is you get 75% of the people agreeing and 25% lying.
Exactly. You can't really trust some of those guys. Now, you mentioned having a crowd. at the Petone Cricket Club, I believe. How many are allowed out? Are you advertising it, or was it just close friends and that?
Oh, look, we've advertised it on our podcast socials, and we've put it out there to people if they want to come down. It's probably, you can fit quite a few people in there. It's not the biggest club rooms in the world, but also doesn't have the best heating, so extra bodies means a little bit of warmth.
Well, exactly right.
But absolutely, if people want to rock in, I think this is almost like a test. And if this is successful, then we'll probably look to explore ways of making this something that more people can enjoy and try and get into. And, it'd be nice to know one day who the greatest Lomu's player in the country is.
Oh, exactly right. I got a message today, the Upper Hutt Rugby Club
I saw
Instagram. Yeah, they say, wait, there's a Lomu's tournament? There we go. So the word getting out there, it's got to be quite expensive. Now, I believe you guys have put a lot of organisation into it, and I believe you've got some sponsors on board as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. We've got one main sponsor, Accountants Plus. Jace Toy is a friend of the podcast. He's he just said, I like supporting local people putting stuff out there, and obviously we're not like a sports club or something of that nature, but he goes, you're guys that from my community who are putting something out there to entertain. So he's a big sponsor, and sort of less of a sponsor and more of a favour. Got a few beers from Panhead to offer to the players on arrival if they're choosing to drink.
Mm-hmm. Could get a bit messy later on, couldn't it? Yeah.
Well, that's why we actually chose to not stock the bar with Panhead, because we know what superchargers can do to someone.
Well,
so it'll be one Panhead, and then you can choose a Heineken or a non-alcoholic, or I think there's some RTDs as well, but keeping it pretty simple.
Oh, that's the best idea.
When we used to play the tournament, it was only 6 of us. We played this tournament when I was in Hawthorn with the Silverstring boys. We did have a little bit of an issue with people getting knocked out early and getting a little bit silly. So we're going to try and do our best to keep everyone engaged and not get too deep too early. The other thing is, we're using a whole bunch of people's PlayStations and TVs, so we've got to look after the equipment.
Oh, exactly. And some of those PlayStations are pretty old now, so I just pulled out mine tonight and realised the audio plugs are a bit dodgy. So.
Yeah, I pulled mine out and had a practice not too long ago and was losing to the computer and thought this is not a good sign. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, I realised it was because my left passing buttons weren't working.
Yeah.
So, I had to throw away my limited edition NRL Manly Seagulls PlayStation 2 controller.
Oh, no. Oh, that'd be heartbreaking indeed. So, well, Sean, it's been fantastic having you on. Well, look, I'm looking forward to Friday. It's going to be fun and exciting, and good to catch up with people as well. But well done on a great idea, and looking forward to Friday. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it too, and I sincerely hope you aren't the one receiving the wooden spoon.
It could be anyone, but I'll be putting some practice in the next 48 hours, that's for sure. So, yeah. All good. Sean Kelly, have a great rest of your night, eh?
Cheers, Brad. See you on Friday.
Yep. So there's Sean Kelly there. He's one of the organisers alongside Sam and Simon Blanford. Now, if you haven't realised the name Blanford, they are the 2 sons of Murray Blanford, who's joined us in a few commentary games on Huddy Sports this year, particularly Petone home games. So, Petone Cricket Club, Friday. That's going to be a brilliant competition to resurrect the old PlayStation out of the attic the other day. Now, we're just waiting for Louis Northcott. He's been at training tonight for the Wellington team. So hopefully he'll be here very soon. But we had a few sporting events on this week, particularly rugby, first 15 rugby. And there were 2 games on today. There was the Bed Trophy match, which also doubled up as a first 15 premiership game. That was played out at Ngāti Toa Domain this afternoon. And it was Mana College that took on Tawa, and Tawa winning that 24 points to 14. So a big result there. Now, actually joining us in the Hui now is the man of the moment. It's Louis Northcott. So we're just waiting to bring him onto the show. And I believe we have the man himself now, Louis Northcott. How are you? Welcome to the Huddy Hui.
Yeah, g'day, Brad. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Now, the first question I'm going to ask you was, of course, last Saturday, the game against Old Boys University. It was a game that had it all. Tell us about that game. Was that one of the most intense games of rugby you've played in your rugby career?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was a thriller from start to finish. Obviously, there was a lot on the line. You know, the Swindale Shield could have gone either way, really, between the 2 teams. And, you know we had a job to do. They went up in the lead early with a try. We fought back, thought we might have had the game put away, but we now know what OBU are like, and they fight back strong in the second half. And in the end, we're just lucky to hang on, really. Finished strong in those last 10 minutes and got the result at the end of the day.
Yeah, let's talk about that second half. The first half, dominant, particularly the last 20, and you look like you're going to comfortably win the game. But that second half, the pressure that Old Boys University applied, tell us about pretty much that half an hour where they just onslaughted you guys.
Yeah, I think going into the halftime huddle, they clearly got a good G up from their coach and came out firing really hard, whereas we might have just possibly taken our foot off the pedal a little bit and just let them sneak back into the game through, silly penalties here and there, and those start to add up. And once they get momentum and the crowd starts to get involved, then it's anyone's game, really.
Well, it almost seems like it was at Ngāti Toa Domain. The club put on free buses for the crowd. Now, tell us about that crowd at Ngāti Toa Domain. They've been through some tough times, particularly Paremata being down the bottom of the table or towards the end. But this year, they've always turned up previous years, but this year there's something special about that crowd.
Yeah. Our supporters will always be.
So we just looks like we're just
there in loud
Louis
numbers.
There.
I mean, quite a while. So.
Oh yeah. So I think we just lost you a bit there, Louis. We might get you to repeat your answer.
Yeah.
If you can still hear me.
Sorry if is my Wi-Fi just a little average?
No, that's all right.
Am I all right now or no?
Yeah, you should be fine. So just repeat your answer just before we buffered before.
Yeah, so the Paremata-Plimmerton supporters, they're always there in loud numbers, and I've been a supporter in the past, and the fans, they're very loyal. Finally, be involved, see us winning a few games. So I think the team's just happy that we can sort of pay them back and, let them enjoy themselves. And even on away games, our supporters will be louder than the home supporters. So it's
just a little bit still choppy there, Louis, but we'll keep going through. Now the clubhouse on Saturday, it's must have been pretty exciting there, particularly with winning a very famous piece of silverware.
Yeah, first time in the club's history that we've come away with the Swindale Shield. So obviously a very proud moment for our club. And yeah, the boys were just really happy. It's been a good season in general, and just been stacking up a few wins. It was never a real goal of ours to come away with the Swindale Shield, but I think it's a nice reward for how we've been playing as a team.
14 tries in the Swindale Shield first round. What was your best try of the Swindale?
Best try? One that I was, it's hard to say. One that I was probably most happy with would have been that second one against Petone, where I caught the ball off a pinpoint kick from our first five, Sam Clark, and just to hear the crowd sort of erupt was, a moment that I won't be forgetting anytime soon.
The back line at Paremata-Plimmerton is of real strength to your side. Tell us about the importance of Dal Sabaj. Oh, he's just frozen there a bit. All right, you're there, Louis. Now we're just going to wait to see if he can sort out his internet. So we'll just wait for him to come back. I think he's back now. Are you there, Louis?
Yep. I'm
okay,
here.
that's
Can
better.
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. That's good. So we're just talking about your back line. Tell us about Dal Sabaj, who's won 2 Swindale Shields and also 2 Jubilee Cups. Tell us about him.
Oh, Dale, he's a great guy. Obviously, he's got a lot of experience, which he brings to the club and likes to impart on our younger players, because our backline does have quite a lot of youth to it. And it's just great to have a guy like him involved with the team who's been there and done it before, been playing for however many years it is now. He doesn't like to mention it too often. He still acts like one of the young blokes around the team, but it's just great to sort of get his advice on a lot of plays, and it's been really helpful.
The coaching staff at Paremata-Plimmerton, Gerard Vasavalu, turned up at the club last year. Tell us about the importance of the coaching lineup.
Oh yeah, the coaching lineup is second to none from anything I've experienced over the years. G in general brought a great culture to the club, with everyone's able to buy in and be on board with what he's saying. You know, everyone's on the same page and going in the same direction, and it's just been great. Backs coach Matt, everyone's buying in, and it's just great in general.
Now, one of the reasons why you're late on the Hui tonight is you were selected into the Wellington Lions wider group for the Ranfurly Shield Challenges coming up. How have you found being part of that environment so far?
Oh yeah, it's been great for me personally. It's a lot of learnings. It's obviously a step up in some senses, and the coaching in general, there's just a bit more expected of you as a player. So I think it's just been great to take that on board and sort of rub shoulders with boys who have been there for a few more years than I have and have that experience and stuff. So it's just a great atmosphere to be involved with.
Now, previously you played rugby up in Horowhenua Kapiti. What was the rugby club you played up there?
So last season I played for the mighty Waikanai, and that went quite well. Enjoyed my club rugby up there. We actually went really cool, and it's a great culture there. There were only 6 clubs in the competition last year, but it's a good bunch of blokes to be around.
Now, I believe also you've represented Horowhenua Kapiti as well. Is that correct? Oh, we've just lost Louis there a bit. So we'll just wait for his pitch to clear.
Yep.
Okay, you're there, Louis?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, question I just asked before, have you played for Paremata-Plimmerton and how many games?
Yeah, so last season I was fortunate enough to be selected in the Paremata-Plimmerton rep team. That was a very cool experience in itself, and I was fortunate enough to pick up 7 caps for the team last season.
And how'd you find playing in the Heartland Championship?
Yeah, it was really cool actually, getting to travel to a few away games. We went out and played against Ngāti Porou East Coast up in Huddy, which was a bit of an experience in itself, going up there, coming down to North Otago and the likes. And the rugby's great. You run into just good heartland players who have been at it for quite a few years, and it's just it's a different type of rugby, but it's still pretty tough.
What is your preferred position in the back line? Have you always been a winger?
Back in college, which is a few years ago for me, I was traditionally a fullback, playing most games there, and it's only the Paremata-Plimmerton last year that I moved out onto the wing, and I don't mind sort of alternating between wing and fullback, and I think this season it's sort of paying off for me a little bit, so it's probably something that I might stick with in the future.
As you mentioned college, you're a product of Kapiti College. Tell us about your time there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kapiti College, it was good. I graduated in 2019, so played first 15 in my last 2 years there, in 18 and 19, and we were in the Premier 1 division both of those years and the year before as well. So we just had a good group of boys come through, and going to one of the not one of the big 4 colleges, you come up against some tough teams and you suffer some tough losses, but the boys stuck in there and we got some memorable results and some memories that we won't forget.
And how many games did you play for the first 15? And what's the biggest rivalry for Kapiti College?
How many games? I didn't pick up too many caps because I only played those last 2 years. It'd be something in the 20s, I'd say around 24. But no doubt the biggest rivalry for our college is playing Paremata College in our annual Rose Bowl traditional, which is a great game every year. Unfortunately, in my year 13, it was a draw, which the Rose Bowl was shared, and I don't think it had ever happened before, so mixed emotions on that one.
Now, James Corcoran, Centurion from Paremata-Plimmerton, has told me that in the off-season, you do a lot of track and field. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do enjoy my athletics in the off-season. Over the summer, I've been at it since I was 10 years old, and I've always found it's just a nice way to keep fit in the off-season, keep active, and helps me come into the rugby season fit and fast, which, it's been a good system for me.
And what's your main speciality on the track? Is it sprints to middle, or what's your main event?
My main event would be the 400 metres. So one lap of the track is, what I spend most of my time training for.
I remember Lee Lidstone from St. Pat's Town said a good rugby player always does 400 metres on the track. And it's obviously paying trumps for you at the moment as well. So how far have you gone in track and field? Have you managed to go to national champs at all?
It's one of the tougher events for sure.
Yeah. Have you managed to go on to any national champs for athletics at all?
Yeah, so I'll often compete at...
I think we just lost him there a bit. Are you there, Louis?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got you. No, it should be better.
Yeah, hello? Am I there?
Yeah, I've got you. I think it's just your Wi-Fi, that's all.
I'll quickly. Yeah, I'll quickly
Okay, we'll
move
just
a bit closer to the motor, mate. That's probably a smart idea.
Might be a good idea.
Whoop.
So he's just setting himself up. No, there we go. It should be a lot better. It's almost like a disco ball going on in the background there. Okay, that's better.
Bit of a change of scenery, but here we are.
Bit of change of scenery. It's a bit like a cyclo on a Wednesday night. Anyway, well, last question I asked you before was, have you been to any national athletics champs?
Yes.
So talk about your running, particularly your skill.
Yeah, so I'll often compete at New Zealand nationals. It's
it seems a bit jumpy there. You continue. You continue. Nope, it's just a bit jumpy there. We'll just give him a bit of a time to.
Yeah, I'm lagging a bit. Oh.
All right, we'll just.
Unfortunately.
Okay. Have you got me there, Louis? Okay, we'll just wait till hopefully Louis' internet.
I don't think my camera's working too good, but
okay, no, we'll continue on. So just continue with your answer before. Oh no, he's just gone to get his internet sorted. So in the meantime, one of the games that was also played today was up in New Plymouth. Was Francis Douglas playing St Bernard's, and it was Francis Douglas winning that one, 38 points to 14. So that was a victory there for Francis Douglas. And earlier mentioned, there was the Bear Trophy final between Mana and Tawa, and Tawa won that 24 points to 14. So that was a pretty good win there for Tawa. That was also a first 15 game as well. Also, speaking about first 15 rugby, there's the quad tournament held at Wellington College at the moment. And of course, Wellington College caused a big upset. They came back from being down at one stage 12-0 against Christ College and ended up winning that game. And so they play the final tomorrow at 1:30 at Wellington College. And they take on Whanganui Collegiate, who beat Nelson in a very entertaining game. So, Christ Nelson at 12, and the quad final, Wellington College and Whanganui Collegiate at 1:30. All those games at Wellington College. So that will be a fantastic opportunity for seeing some top quality first 15 rugby. Now, also news today, Tame Plumtree, who's also been a guest on the Huddy Hui, he was our second ever guest, also announced he's going over to Scarlets. And so he's finished his time with the Wellington Lions. So wishing Tane all the best as he heads overseas. Now, we're just waiting to hear back if Louis Northcott can get his internet going. So we might be able to finish later half of his interview, but we'll come back to him soon. Now, also, first 15 games this weekend. There's only 3 games on Saturday. Town actually, take on Rongotai College. That's traditional for both those schools. That's at Evans Bay Park. So that's always a thrilling game, that one. Town, of course, need to win to keep themselves in the playoff hunt. St Bernard's have to play 2 games in a week. They have to beat Tawa at home this Saturday. And of course, St Bernard's scores the big massive win over Wellington College last week, 14-7 at High Park. And Well, we're finally going to get to see the two best teams in action this Saturday. Stream versus Scots out at Silverstream. 1v2. These two teams have dominated the competition pretty much for the last 8 years. And it's going to be interesting indeed to see two undefeated teams. And it will be interesting to see how that game goes. Of course, Silverstream have had some good wins. And hopefully they'll have Māori Winitana Patalasio back at first five. So that could be quite interesting. Also, I thought I'd touch on one matter. He's been a guest on the Huddy Hui before. And that is New Zealand referee Ben O'Keefe. We had Hamish Mixted on last week. He brought up his 100th game, who did a Jubilee Cup final in 2013. And Ben O'Keefe did it in 2014. Refereeing is a tough job. I've done it before. I've been in some situations that aren't pretty. And it's a pretty lonely place when you're the man out there in the middle, regardless of what level. I think it's very brave, what Ben did, particularly showing those messages, and some of them are absolutely horrible. And no one should have to put up with that at all. You know, threatening someone, saying things that are just terribly unpleasant. And Ben is a top man, a really great man. You know, he's a qualified doctor, a really nice guy who gets to know people he meets in everyday life. And of course, you know, regardless of how he refereed, etc., I thought he did a good job on Saturday. A challenging game. Finals always are challenging. So good on you, Ben O'Keefe, you know, and keep going. Because we need people like you promoting refereeing. And we also need people to referee the game. That's the other reason why our game will survive, is having someone out there. Because a game can't run without a referee. And at the end of the day, it's just a game. So, yeah, that's my little spiel on that. Respect the referee. We're all humans after all. Of course, we come to the first round of the Jubilee Cup and Hardham Cup. And of course, we've got the top 4 teams in action. And the winners of those games have a week off. And the other teams that lose those games get an extra life. So Paremata-Plimmerton play Upper Hutt. And the winner of that gets a week off. And we have a home semi-final. And Johnsonville take on Old Boys University. And of course, Johnsonville played them in the middle part of the season. And they end up winning that game. So Johnsonville at home, Helston Park, the Hawks on fire, Old Boys University. They'll probably be hurting after that game against Paremata-Plimmerton last weekend. So that could be interesting. But we also have some Jubilee Cup qualifiers as well. Now, the winner of these games will go through and play the losers of the top 4 clashes. So, unfortunately, whoever loses these quarterfinals drops down to the Hardham Cup section. So we've got Mara St. Pat taking on Oriental Rongotai at Evans Bay Park. And the game that we're covering on Saturday, the Petone Wreckers, Petone versus Tawa. Now, I called that game for Te Puko o Te Ika in the middle of the season. And Petone won that game at Lyndhurst Park, where Stanley Solomon scored 4 tries. So it's always a thrilling encounter. These two played each other in a Jubilee Cup semi-final last year, which we broadcast. And Ben Brooking, who's now playing his trade out for Carterton, was scored the winner that day. So a game, I think, well, it will go right down to the wire, this one, Petone Tawa. Now, in the Hardham Cup section, we've got Huddle Boys Maris taking on Wellington. Porniki versus Avalon. And Wainui Mata taking on Norths. And, of course, Wainui won that game this year in the Swindale Shield. So that could be quite interesting. Now, we're just waiting to see how Louis getting on. So just in the meantime, I might just put some pause until hopefully he's got his internet sorted. So we'll just take a little bit of a break here, and hopefully he'll be back soon. Okay, so it looks like we might have Louis Northcott back. So we'll just see if we can get him back in the show. So just give us a bit of time to see if he's back. All right, g'day Louis. That looks a lot better.
That looks a little better, does it?
Oh, it sure does. So look, good to see. Got the internet gremlins sorted. So the last question I had before we had a few issues. Now we were talking about athletics and how you are pretty skilled at 400 metres. Have you taken your track and field out to national tournaments?
Yeah, well, I've competed at New Zealand national champs for quite a few seasons now, and although I'm not, I'm in the mix, but it's tough to sort of build up for a big athletic season and play rugby at the same time. So I try to build in just the summer months and get going a bit, but I do all right on a national level. I think I ran 7th in the 400 metre senior men's final this season just gone. So something I was quite happy with.
Is there what's your athletics club that you compete for? Oh, there he is.
Sorry about that.
No, that's right. So what's the athletics club that you compete for?
Yeah, so I compete for Paremata-Plimmerton track and field, which is just a little club out in Kapiti. It's got a lot of younger kids involved with it, and not too many senior kids coming through, but the ones who do are quite serious and can compete quite well. So it's a nice little culture there.
Now, the keys to being a winger and also fast, what are some of the key skills that you need to take into the game of rugby to be on your toes?
It's some of the key skills I take over. Obviously, bringing the speed over is something, that I obviously try to use on the rugby field, but that at times isn't enough. So I think, having grown up playing rugby since the age of about 4 years old, I've been able to adapt, and I'm, not just a track and field person coming over to rugby sort of thing, which is, it'd be quite hard to make the transition. So just a good knowledge of the game, I think, can go a long way.
Before you came on the show, we were talking about a Jonah Lomu rugby tournament on PlayStation. Who's your favourite rugby player, and is it a winger?
My favourite rugby player growing up, it was always Conrad Smith was my favourite rugby player. I'd say a controversial opinion, but I'd say the greatest Hurricane centre of all time.
I think he's the greatest All Black centre of the professional age. I think he was brilliant.
Well, yeah, there you go. Me and you both.
There we go. Now, of course, any other sports that you've played outside of track and field and rugby?
Yeah, well, back in college, I also enjoyed my cricket, but a little less so now. With the rugby season sort of going as long as it does, if you make certain rep teams, and then the athletics over summer keeps me busy enough for the time being, and just sort of had to give the cricket away just to sort of maintain my body. Sound like a bit of an old man, but yeah.
Still young at heart. And what do you do during the week, work-wise or anything?
During the week, I work in auditing, so financial auditing for Grant Thornton. I recently finished my studies at university earlier this year, so that keeps me busy Monday to Friday, and it's a nice escape from the rugby world, I guess.
Now, your opposition on Saturday is the only team that Paremata-Plimmerton has lost to this year. It's back in round one, Swindale Shield, the Upper Hutt Rams. Tell us about that experience in round one against Upper Hutt. And you've got them at home this Saturday. Who is it you have to watch out for?
I think it'd be hard to pick out just one player to watch out for in their back line. I know their winger, Jonah, I believe, has been scoring tries like no other this season. So, yeah, if he's on my wing, that's someone I'll definitely have to watch out for. But I think the boys are really looking forward to the game because, obviously they did beat us in round one, and it's something that stuck with us. But it was a good, hard-fought game, and there wasn't much in it at the end of the day. So hopefully, 13, 14 rounds later now, we've made the adjustments, and we'll look to get the job done.
There is an Upper Hutt player that scored the same amount of tries as you, and he's not a back. Do you have any idea who?
Oh, yeah, of course, Toby Crosby. Yeah, that's wow. Yeah, he might hit me up at training for getting his name. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Toby Crosby. That's one we have to watch out for. He's just scoring tries for fun most games, and he's been a great player, and saw him play at college as well, and it's good to see that he's so confidently made the step up.
Now, I was talking to James Corcoran 2 weeks ago when you guys played Petone. There's a good feeling in the team. Can the team go all the way to the Jubilee Cup?
There's a lot of belief in our changing rooms amongst the boys. We know what we need to do, and there's a clear path there, and if everyone can go about their jobs and just stick to the systems, then it's not something we'll rule out. But we like to just take things one game at a time. We'll focus this Saturday against Upper Hutt, and then if that game goes our way, then we'll look forward to the next.
Well, Louis, we had a few technical hiccups, but we got there in the end. Great interview. Fantastic to have you on the Huddy Hui, and go well on Saturday.
Yeah, cheers. Appreciate it, Brad, and just like to thank you for all that you do for the community game and just with promoting it and everything. Me and a lot of other people just think it's great.
Awesome. Thank you for the kind words, Louis. It's Louis
Cheers.
Northcott, the winger for Paremata-Plimmerton, try-scoring machine. And as mentioned earlier, they're taking on Upper Hutt at home this Saturday. All those games in club rugby in the Jubilee and Hardham kick off at 2:45. And also on Huddy Sports, we're covering Batoni Tawa. As mentioned earlier, our coverage of that will start at 2:30 p.m. Well, it is the Huddy Hui for tonight. It's been a fantastic episode talking Jonah Lomu Rugby on PlayStation 1 all the way to Louis Northcote, another talented winger. So it's been a real pleasure, this episode. We'll be back next week for our 90th episode. I'm Brad Hudson. Ciao for now.